Welcome to Technovation. I'm your host, Peter High. My guest today is Amir Kazmi. Amir is the Chief Information and Digital Officer of WestRock, an $18 billion revenue company that's a global leader in differentiated, sustainable, fiber-based packaging solutions to a diverse array of customers. Amir has been the CEO of a startup, Kuprion. He's also led commercial product development, IT transformation, and P&L portfolio analytics at Lockheed Martin. Moreover, he's served on multiple boards, including Sight Machine, Emory University, and the Girl Scouts. Amir has a wealth of experiences that he brings to his current post, and looking forward to hearing all about it. Amir, welcome. Great to see you.
Peter, it's wonderful to be with you. Thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure. Well, Amir, for those who may be less familiar with WestRock's business, I mentioned in brief an overview as to the size and the areas in which you play, but maybe you can take a moment and add a little more context, please.
Happy to do it. And again, thanks for having me. I think you've covered key areas of our business, Peter. So WestRock, we're a global leader in packaging, so fiber-based packaging, and I think that's important to point out. We're Fortune 200, as you mentioned. We do about 18 billion in revenue. The other thing that's worth pointing out is, it's a company that's distributed globally with 50,000 teammates, supporting over 30 countries. We have over 300 operating locations around the world. But let's talk about what we do, which is really paper packaging solutions to a wide variety of end markets. So think about beverage, think about e-commerce, food service, healthcare, and I can go on. In many places, Peter, we have the privilege of being number one and number two in positions where we participate. And we also, you touched on this briefly, but we serve our customers proudly with innovative packaging designs and also machinery solutions. So in addition to the packaging, we also have machinery solutions. And frankly, we have the privilege of supporting many of the largest global brands around the world.
Excellent. And I mentioned at the top that you're the Chief Information and Digital Officer of the company. Talk a bit about the two sides of your title. What is within your purview, please?
Peter, so the way that we approach it is it's all about the key stakeholders and their experiences. Right. So the four experiences that we think about really are the customer experience, the employee experience, the operations experience, and our packaging/product experience. So think of the solutions around the product itself. Let me give you a few examples. So when you think of customer experience, it is about how our customers engage with us and also how we engage with them. So it's about the experience in terms of the need to be seamless, right? I mean, that is critical today. We're focused on e-commerce channels and frankly, meeting our customers on the channel of their choice. And so we serve multiple channels, including digital channel. The second experience that I think is worth talking about is operations and employee experience. And one thing I'll point out is, we've grown through, and Peter, from our prior conversations, through several large acquisitions, including 2 multi-billion-dollar public company acquisitions. So we are on a process to digitize our supply chain as an example, and order management processes to simplify and scale the business in a secure way. But that operations and employee experience is accelerated by doing what I just talked about. And frankly, obviously enhancing our cybersecurity resiliency. The other area I'm excited about is digital manufacturing within the operations experience. So we're accelerating our focus here and actively deploying predictive analytics on the factory floor. So machine learning helps us determine and recommend ideal parameters to not only build the product, but also where it should be built across our network of factories. And we're continuing to deploy machine learning and AI capabilities across our company. The other experience, Peter, would be the solutions experience. I touched on this briefly. So this is seamless experiences on our product and the solutions around the products. So we talked about digital sales channel that improve our customers' experience, but we also invest in digital business models to provide a unique experience to our customers on the package itself. So an example, smart, connected packaging solutions that enable our customers, and oftentimes, Peter, some of the largest brands, so that they can connect with the end consumer more effectively. And I think as we continue our discussion, I'll provide some additional examples there.
I would love to. It's been a very interesting thing to hear about the revenue and digital channels and how they have grown substantially under your watch. Do if you would, to talk a little bit more about some of the methods you've used and examples that have led to double-digit growth of those digital channels.
Yeah, thanks, Peter. So we see our revenue as part of a larger picture. Our company overall is very forward-thinking when it comes to digital. and it's part of the overall landscape. And frankly, our new leader, David Sewell, is an advocate, and I'm incredibly excited about the vision moving forward and the critical role of digital. We believe that we will continue to differentiate in the marketplace as we accelerate these capabilities. And we'll talk about some examples here. I also want to point out that I think the magic actually happens, Peter, at the intersection of digital capabilities and other key focus areas. And let me give you an example or two. So sustainability and material science innovation. And so we are very focused on sustainability. We're a fiber-based company, and we're really focused on, having our products over time be fully recyclable. And so none of this, is possible at the end of the day without an amazingly diverse and inclusive team. So what I'm frankly most proud of is the privilege of working with an amazing team. But to get to your question, the revenue through our digital channel has increased over the past few years. And we've seen an acceleration through COVID as well, Peter. And we do about, over $300 million of business there. And as I mentioned, it's part of our business, and some of the channel it's really channel shifting. But it's revenue from the digital channel side. But your question also touched on digital revenue overall. So in addition to the channel, let's touch on where digital is enabling differentiation on our products and what that looks like.
Great.
Our commercial team tracks digital enablement in our commercial pipeline. In many cases, this is about both, Peter, maintaining existing business while also growing the business itself. And our pipeline on digital enabled solutions is healthy and growing. Fiscal year to date, we're approximately over $240 million of our revenues enabled from digital solutions on our packages. And our pipeline of digital related opportunities is much larger than that. So that hopefully gives you some context. But let's talk about an example here, Peter. So before we get into it, and then we'll talk about a key customer of ours and a key partner. Let's have some fun. So do you enjoy pizza?
I love pizza.
So my kids probably could eat it every day, Peter. And, by some estimates, we Americans, so we eat over 3 billion pizzas a year. So Peter, as you can imagine, the amount of packaging tied to those pizzas. So one of our key customers who also makes amazing pizza is Domino's. So WestRock shared with Domino's the results of a multi-phase grease study that we did, which was also third-party reviewed and determined that the grease and the residual cheese, Peter, that gets left inside of the box, it doesn't affect the ability of the box to be recycled. So our ability to create new packaging from that recycled material is important. That is something that consumers know about. So to increase the volume of recyclable fiber from pizza boxes, returning back into the circular economy, we created a digital solution in partnership with Domino's, enabling consumers so they can look up their local recycling guidelines. And we're thankful to Domino's for partnering with us to promote the recyclability of pizza boxes, because awareness, we believe, is the first step in getting, in this case, municipalities to rethink policies around what is acceptable. And as we've scaled this digital capability, we're now also working with Performance Food Group, a food service distribution company, which provides our boxes to locally owned pizzerias. They too are joining the effort to raise awareness of consumers. And WestRock, on the note of Domino's, was recently selected as Domino's Supplier of the Year. And we're in the process of scaling the digital solution to improve sustainability. And like I said, Peter, the impact potential is substantial, with some estimates that we Americans eat, as you said, 3 billion pizzas a year.
Remarkable. And it speaks a little bit to a topic I'd love to delve into more deeply. I know from our past conversations, you've talked about the profound role that digital plays in developing more seamless connection point with the supply chain as well. And what an interesting supply chain you have to deliver all that you do. Talk a little bit about that role that digital plays in the supply chain, please.
Sure. So as you digitize packaging, which we just talked about, it's to provide meaningful insights about the product that we carry inside the package. We're focused on 3 key areas here, Peter: brand protection, consumer engagement, and supply chain visibility. And we'll touch on supply chain visibility since you asked about that. And I think if I remember correctly, according to the USDA and the United Nations Food and Agriculture Organization, it's estimated that approximately 30% of the food is wasted in the United States and globally. We believe packaging can help address part of this problem by increasing shelf life, tracking products, preventing tampering, and much more. And we're partnering with startups to provide continuous visibility and intelligence tracking on the package. So connected packaging, which is smart, it's data rich, Peter, can help reduce spoilage, traceability, but also provide insights about the product on the package. And I'm thinking, let me share another internal example in terms of supply chain. So we talked about supply chain in terms of the package and its movement through the supply chain and the product it carries. But inside our company, we're also deploying data-driven intelligence to transform our internal supply chain. So for example, leveraging machine learning algorithms to route orders to specific factory floors, improving our freight cost, optimizing order placement. And as I shared earlier, our focus is on the operations experience, the teammate experience. It includes digitizing our supply chain and those predictive insights into our demand and supply signals for both our customer orders and then also, frankly, our internal materials that are needed for our own product manufacturing.
Very interesting indeed. I know, again, from past conversations of ours, that you focus on building greater digital dexterity and acumen across the WestRock team. Talk, if you would, about the methods that have worked best and how you think of measure, or how you even measure success as to whether the methods are working.
Yeah, we're excited about the journey ahead, and the methods that have worked best for us include, they're not limited to the following areas that come to mind. It's tech talks, it's now, future, next. We've developed a site that really starts with where are we today, informed by megatrends, where's the future headed, and therefore, what are the next actions that we need to take? So, and you may think it's kind of, flipped, but that actually, I think, informs you to think about the future as you inform your next steps. And WestRock, we connect, we have connect stories that we share as well. And obviously things like hackathons and change management training. But we're building a more innovative culture. We have global forums where we talk about it and building, frankly, a culture that welcomes experimentation as you build these capabilities. We're going to be doing more with digital customer conversations. So think of leadership sessions and direct employee collaboration sessions with customers, which I think over time also upskill, right, the acumen. But then we also have focused enterprise upskilling programs. But let's touch a little bit on the digital customer conversation. Many of my peers who, Peter, you know well and you talk to, including those who happen to be our customers. So think in pharma, food, beverage, e-commerce, and markets. They are also looking to partner with innovative digital suppliers. So what it does, it allows us to jointly accelerate work with forward-leaning, innovative customers to frankly help them win in the marketplace with digital solutions and sustainable packaging. And that collaboration, we're going to continue to accelerate that. And your question on success, Peter, so we measure our success through adoption of digital capabilities and also realization of the value by our customers and within our organization. So as an example, AR, VR capabilities, we've deployed them over 30 factories, and they've frankly been accelerated during the pandemic. And what it does is it just allows our colleagues on the factory floor to get remote support in the middle of the night or whenever needed, on demand faster. On the customer, so that's internal, Peter. On the customer side, just in the last several months, we've had over 40 large customers, including some large customers, some small customers, that are using XR design capabilities, AR, VR capabilities, enabling kind of an interactive product design process with customers. And what I'm excited about this is really the intersection of sales, marketing, commercial teams with our customers. And this need really accelerated by our sales and our marketing and our commercial team. So the capability and the adoption with digital, acumen being raised, I think it pulls those capabilities in a very meaningful way. And it translates into, making the experience with customers that much more effective and that much more enjoyable. And I think the last thing is, we also realize automations have been deployed to really improve the employee experience so that our folks, our teammates are not working on, where possible, on higher value work, and you can automate things. And we've seen several $1 million of productivity realized through things like robotic process automation and so on.
That's excellent. I mentioned at the top that you were a former chief executive officer of a startup, a company called Cuprion, for a time. And I wonder how having the ultimate responsibilities, the ultimate P&L, the need to be customer focused, how that has informed you as a technology and digital executive? How has being a CEO in your past impacted the way in which you lead now as a CIDO?
I think the customer perspective and the voice of the customer is incredibly important, and amplifying that inside of the IT digital organization. So both the voice of your stakeholders, right, within the company who we support and enable, from running operations, from serving our customers, but then also the voice of the customer. You have to amplify that in building really, unique and differentiated experiences with digital solutions. I think the other thing I would touch on, Peter, is having been in P&L roles, including the one that you pointed out of having the privilege of start and run a business. I value pace and scale, and I think it's important to strike a balance between pace and scale. And sometimes it's about learning quickly with customers, your own customers, and figuring out which customers got the right appetite for those solutions. So you can iterate those feedback loops faster. Something that I think is really important to measure, and having the right KPIs so that those loops are part of your product development, product management strategy. And I think the other thing I would say is that, it's frankly leading amazing talented teams that leverage technology to accelerate the purpose of the business, to build those competitive capabilities. And you've got to have some fun while you're at it. And I would probably say, having a bias for action when you're running a business, especially when you're running a smaller business, smaller company, you're dealing with different constraints. And so sometimes it's better to get a no than a protracted long yes, especially when you're trying to validate your product, your solutions in the marketplace.
That's a great response. Appreciate your that reflection. I wanted to also, as you thinking of startups, having started a startup before and led one, you also now partner with startups in your current role. I know you've even taken investment positions in them and board seats in startups in the present and past as well. Talk a bit about the importance of partnering with startups as establishing a better ecosystem to deliver all that you've described.
Yeah, great question. I would recommend to your listeners, John Chambers. He has a podcast, and he also writes about this topic, and I think he does a great job covering this topic. And a phenomenal leader. At the end of the day, we all have our core strengths in our businesses, and startups are often, in some cases, really leading breakthrough capabilities in different areas. And part of what they're looking for, also, like we discussed earlier, it's a similar model. They're looking for those partnerships to accelerate those feedback loops as they harden their products. But we believe that they're a very important part of the ecosystem. It's building an ecosystem that includes startups, includes academia, and includes our large partners, like the large technology companies that are out there. But in some cases, to your point, Peter, we've also taken strategic interest in companies to accelerate them and to build a competitive advantage within our business, whether it's on the forefront of digital factories and applying machine learning and AI on the factory floor, or it's making the packages smarter. And so we're very much open to and continue to engage with startups, and we would welcome any startups that are in the space to reach out and engage with us as we build these core strategic areas of focus that we discussed in the conversation today.
And talk a bit about your role as a board leader as well. I mentioned that you've been on the board of organizations as diverse as Sight Machine, a company that leverages machine learning and AI to improve manufacturing quality and efficiency, of Emory University in your backyard in Atlanta, being an Atlanta-based executive, and of the Girl Scouts as well. Talk a bit about your board work, if you would.
Yeah, sure. So I'm not on any public company board currently. But, I have had the privilege of serving in nonprofits, academia, in an advisory board, and then private for-profit, such as startups that you mentioned. Let's touch a little bit on, at the end of the day, I think that diversity is good for business. We touched on it very briefly. And I am very excited about my service at Girl Scouts. Since you mentioned Girl Scouts, let's talk about it. So I would not be here if it wasn't for my own mother, right, who encouraged me to tinker with green screen computers when we were younger, Peter. You may remember them. They're now sitting in museums. And I'm incredibly excited about supporting women in STEM fields. And frankly, that starts early, right? And there has been, and when it comes to startup board roles to accelerate certain capabilities within our companies, we touched on that. From a board perspective, Peter, it's about areas that you're really passionate about. I genuinely believe that there's a lot of opportunities to serve. It's figuring out where you're passionate about. And I mentioned this earlier that the focus of my role is enabling those differentiated customer, stakeholder experiences, operations experiences, teammates, and then solutions experiences. And so that translates from a board member perspective, right, in terms of driving value by guiding the organizations or supporting the organizations to transform those experiences. And in that process, in some cases, giving back to the community.
That's fantastic. Before I let you go, I wanted to ask you about trends that excite you. You've mentioned a few different trends that you're exploring through some of the investments you're making. Talk a bit about, as you contemplate your roadmap looking forward, what are some more trends that particularly excite you?
Yeah, I think the one area that we didn't touch on, right, is probably 5G. And I think 5G is going to continue to play a profound role in our lives as it reduces the cost of connectivity, Peter. So I had the privilege in the past of being on an advisory board for one of the biggest telecoms in their country, as it relates to 5G. And so I think the profound impact of 5G is going to bring the cost of connectivity down, whether it's your factory floor being more autonomous and automated, whether it's your product or your package that's moving to the supply chain that we talked about, Peter, or whether it's it's the product itself. So I think the role of 5G is going to continue to be profound, and it's going to allow us to do things like what we discussed in even a more accelerated way, such as smart packaging. I think the other thing, Peter, is that packaging is, in my opinion, is leading the way towards a closed loop economy where our portfolio is fully recyclable, which is part of our vision. And so another thing is continue to educate around sustainable forestry and how it's the cornerstone of responsible and renewable nature of fiber-based products. I think providing sustainable alternatives for those who want to reduce the use of plastics and packaging is also an important trend as you look to the future. I'll touch back on, it's creating a workplace that's diverse, inclusive, where everyone feels safe, heard, valued, and has a sense of belonging, because I think that allows you to do, extraordinary things when your team is fully engaged. So I'll pause there.
That's great. Well, Amir Kazmi, thank you so much for sharing your perspectives, a bit more about the fascinating business that you're in, but also ways in which you and the team have leveraged technology and digital to accelerate the growth of the organization. It seems like an exciting time to be at your company. Thank you so much for a great conversation.
Thank you for having me, Peter. This was fun.